Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Montel Weekly Podcast, bringing you energy matters in an informal setting. Norway and other countries in the Nordic region experienced an extreme freeze at the start of the year. The weather is currently milder, but a cold snap is expected to return next week. In today's pod, we discuss the outlook for prices, as we may not be saved by a mild winter in the coming months. Will electricity imports from other parts of Europe come to the rescue and keep a lid on power prices in the region? Helping me, Richard Sverrisson, to discuss the outlook for the coming weeks is our old friend Sigbjørn Seland of Storm. A warm welcome, Sigbjørn.
Thank you, Richard. Happy to be back on the pod.
Perfect. And we also have Gunnar Jakobsen of Volt Power Analytics, who makes his first appearance on the pod. A warm welcome to you too, Gunnar.
Thank you very much, Richard.
I would like to start off by maybe talking more generally about 2023. How would you summarize that year, Sigbjørn, in terms of prices in particular?
Yes, I think there are many perspectives there. If you look back on how we in general the market expected 2023 to turn out, things have been obviously, we have seen high prices also in 2023, but luckily much, much lower than what we feared back in 2022. We are still a very high price level compared to everything before 2021, but slowly but surely it seems that we are returning towards more normal levels, but still it's in general a higher price level than we have had back in the days, for sure.
Were there any surprises last year, Gunnar, would you say?
I would say the speed of how quickly they managed to put into this mobile LNG terminals in Germany helped a lot, because that obviously lowered the general price levels significantly compared to what we saw in 2022. I think that's the main issue. We also obviously saw a shift in the weather. So the high prices were in the south, and luckily we got a lot of precipitation in the autumn 22, and that continued into 2023, which obviously helped these high-priced areas, which we saw then. And obviously the weather shifting is not a surprise, but it's always hard to predict where it's going to come.
Exactly. We'll touch more on the weather later, especially the very cold snap we're currently experiencing in certain parts of Scandinavia and the Nordic region. But Sigbjørn, in looking back again, were there any sort of key policy developments that you'd like to highlight, or the things that were important for the market?
I wouldn't say that. Nothing that sort of pops up in my mind. I think my main takeaway is that markets are extremely efficient. You have seen a lot of energy markets are global in a way, huge market, and price signals work slowly but surely. Things return in a way towards a more normal situation. So I would say that is experience from last year, that the markets are extremely adaptable, flexible, and can cope with basically any shock that we saw like late 2021 or early 2022.
The key market resilience in a way, in a light of a very volatile and a very high price situation. But my question was really because we saw a little bit of a trend towards interventionism or protectionism. Is that a concern, do you think, Sigbjørn, in Norway or the wider Nordic region? For example, we'll come into talk about it later, but there's a popular kind of, it seems to be an opposition building towards interconnection and the cables to neighbouring countries.
I guess in many ways that is surprise in a way, maybe at least in Norway, where average household consumes like 25,000 kilowatt hours and are really exposed to the electricity price. I mean, in Southern Norway, we have seen these unusually high prices for a long time. Obviously, many people are concerned about that and seek for let's say simple answers in a way, or maybe not simple, but I'm not surprised about that, I would say, and whether that will lead to sort of a market interventions as a change of a market structure, that depends to be seen. Obviously, from my point of view, I would say that, as I said already, the main takeaway here is that markets are working fantastically well. So from that perspective, I would hope that basically the market structure is that we don't see any significant intervention in the market structure and keep things more or less as they are, and hopefully things get a bit more normal eventually. And when you then look back at the situation, I think you will see that what happened would have happened basically in any market show. You would have seen high prices regardless, but the market dealt with a very special situation. And from my perspective, it doesn't sort of induce the need for any public interventions. Or
I don't expect you to disagree here, Odd Gunnar, with what Sigbjørn is saying. I think I feel I'm preaching to the converted in a way. But do you feel a concern that the pendulum is swinging towards more intervention, or more of a kind of maybe not intervention as such, but certainly more driven by politics? So politics is very much aware of what's happening in the market and is, clearly eyeing developments.
Yes, that we'll probably see. Maybe less in Norway, as we've seen around us. As we see now, we saw some auction that failed in UK and other places around us, and just quite swiftly, the EU then said that this is something we have to look into. UK straight away increased their support for the next auction, and we expect these to go through, and there will be a massive build out. We see Germany put up a lot of money to build out more. But these things takes time, obviously. So in that way, I think we're going to see less in Norway in that regard, as we have seen around us. And I don't think there will be any interventions on the cables as the talk is about. Or I also think maybe some of these public opinions will soften a bit now that the prices, we expect them to be lowered to more normal levels as we expect, and maybe they can see that, the countries around us are building a lot and they're actually getting lower prices. So I think the opinion will always change compared to where the situation is now. And you always have to think about, I've been in for 15 years in this market, and things takes time. It's not a quick fix here. And
things don't happen overnight in these markets. Absolutely not, Odgar. I agree. And I think when you're talking about the auctions, I guess you meant the offshore wind auctions, right? Yes. Yeah. So we have been saved by a mild winter. I think it's fair to say that certainly last year. Now, this year started with a big freeze. Temperatures minus 40, even lower in some areas in the Nordic region. Okay, the coming days will be a little bit milder, certainly in the Oslo region. But next week, we will see a return of the cold snap. What will be the impact on prices? If I can start with you, Odd Gunnar, what with your forecast, and then turn to Sigbjørn.
Now it doesn't seem like it's going to be as cold, but it still is going to be very cold. And I think, as we saw from Finland, as soon as they get problems with their heating, then you need to use electricity to heat on top of the normal heating systems, and then consumption goes up quite a bit, and that combined with low wind will lift that region again for sure. But and then now they have more power available. Obviously, you get very vulnerable in these cold spells when it's this extreme if something will drop out. So we saw last time Maripol went out a couple of days, and they also had some others, CHP and gas plants out at the same time, and that was a bit critical. So obviously next week can come quite high and be driven high east from the east if something drops out. I think that we have good control if there's a normal situation and the power plants are available.
In these situations, obviously every megawatt counts really. But do you think then in Finland it's going to be more critical than say in Norway or in Sweden?
Yes, because we have good control from our hydro reservoirs. Obviously, we will be affected, as we saw in Oslo area, NO1 and NO5 got pulled up quite significantly from Sweden towards Finland. So it's not a risk, especially end of the week, maybe Thursday. It looks very cold, combined with low wind, maybe. So that's we could see quite high prices also next Thursday.
What kind of high prices are we talking about? And just if you can clarify what NO1 and NO5 are for those listeners who aren't aware of the price areas in the Nordic region.
Yeah, it's NO1 is Oslo area around there, and NO5 is Bergen mainly, and obviously the mountains around, but that's where people live. Those two are very have a strong connection because of the cables between them, and NO5 doesn't have any other outlets or help from north or south. They are just minor cables that goes south towards Stra and north to Trondheim. It's this very thin cable, so it's those two have a high connections, but they have quite good hydro reservoirs are close to normal, and but it's obviously the effect. So the capacity they are dependent on having imports most likely, and then the week lots of imports from southern region in Norway, but also they need electricity from Sweden, and that's where the key is. That the price there. If they have to import from Sweden, they have to have a higher price than Sweden to get in what they need.
Are we talking 200 euros a megawatt hour or and above, or less than that?
At Thursday, I would easily say we can get hours up to there, yeah.
And Sigbjørn, what's your view here? Do you, do you share the views that prices could sort of peak next week on the Thursday?
Margins are fairly tight in Finland, so you always have sort of the risk for some incidents like nuclear power plant or maybe the big coal power plant to drop out during a cold spell could happen. But the main expectation is that the system will cope very well with the cold next week. We have now, I guess, most likely it will not be quite as cold as we had last Thursday, Friday, and we saw that basically the system coped very well with that situation without Finland, which had unfortunate incident with Maripol and also one other CSP plant, I guess. But for the rest of the system, it looks robust, resilient, more resilient than any time before, I would say, because basically, consumption is not, obviously it reaches high levels during the coldest hours and days, but we haven't seen higher consumption levels before, and we have a lot of with 35 gigawatt of wind power in the Nordic region now, normally you have a minimum 5 to 6 gigawatt of wind power in the system. And with the mild outlook for continental Europe and UK, basically next week, prices have been decreasing a lot. So import of the sea cables will be fairly cheap next week. My expectation is that you will see a moderate price increase in all areas of the Nordic region compared to this week.
That's interesting because you will have, the cables will flip. So the standard is that you export to continental Europe and to the UK, but in these kind of situations, there'll be more import into the region.
Yeah, typically, it will flip on Skagerrak, the NO2 DK1 cable, and NO2 Germany, NO2 the Netherlands, and UK maybe NO2 towards UK and DK1 towards UK. That is a bit more on the margin, maybe will not flip. But under normal circumstances, except in Finland, margins are fairly decent, I would say. So I would be surprised if we saw very high prices next week.
But would it then be fair to say that the cables have come to the rescue, as I mentioned in the intro, that they've kept a lid on prices or avoided them going that high? Would that be correct, Sigbjørn?
Yeah, finally. Well, in a way, that's fair. That's fair to say. Froze flip typically during these cold snap, as it did partially last week. Probably will do again next week.
The public perception is often that the cables will increase prices, Sigbjørn. But how would prices have been, for example, if you look back in the first week of January or last week even without the cables? Is that? I'm putting you on the spot here, Sigbjørn. But
if you look at last week, if you think average prices with or without the sea cables, I think that would have been more or less the same, actually. Some days a bit higher, some days a bit lower, but that week, just looking at that week, nothing else, that didn't make such a big change, I would say. Obviously, they are the capacity to import is there, and prices.
But it could have an impact next week.
In continental Europe and UK will be fairly moderate next week. Likely, so that there's the import capacity is there, and that put sort of a lid on potential price spikes in the Nordic region.
What's your view here, Gunnar?
Yeah, no, I agree, because obviously what Sigbjørn is saying here is the temperature is expected to increase again. It's cold now in the continent, but it will increase, especially from mid next week again, and normally that leads also to higher wind. We see closer to normal wind levels, and there should be a good opportunity to import on reasonable prices. So I when I said 200, that's the maximum one couple of hours. I don't expect that to be the normal next week, unless something drop out, especially then in Finland, as I said. Yes, I don't think the prices would have changed much either if we didn't have the cables. And I mean, when people talk about the cables, they normally refer to the new cables to Germany and UK. Because as the situation is now, with the very good control in the Nordic hydro areas, they would anyhow price their water close to the fuel prices on the continent. And what they do now is just make sure they export as much as they can on these prices, so they get maximum value, and import on the prices that drop well below that level. And that's what we're going to see also next week, I assume.
I mean, just to turn to the kind of political debate in Norway, and I think there's been some pressure on the producers as well to show, should we say, responsibility in the way that they produce power, they use the water resources. Have you noticed any change in behaviour, for example, especially kind of in the off-peak hours maybe, that the producers are holding back more than they have done previously in light of this political pressure?
I would say second half of 2022, I would guess that, the big Norwegian hydropower producers felt a bit the political pressure to behave, let's say, responsibly from the perspective of the politicians to make sure that they had enough water left in their reservoirs for the entire winter. So maybe you could see that they were a bit like conservative with the way they produced and used their water second half of 2022. But it's not obvious, and I would say I don't find any signs of that currently. It's business as usual for sure from my perspective. They utilize their resources to the best of their ability to make the most money as possible, and that's the way they should behave. And in my opinion, that's what they are doing.
Do you think that the cold snap that we're experiencing and the resulting high prices is not enough to change the perception that the cables are there to raise prices domestically, that there isn't the public is not given the flip side, that they're actually coming to the benefit and helping security of supply? What's your view, Sigbjørn?
Obviously, you get sort of both there, and both sides of the cable exposed in a way. After a long time, they have been seen as a pure export cable. You see that they can have like a cold snap straight situation benefit, so to speak. But given the current market situation, the Nordic region in Norway has a very big production surplus. So the other side of that coin is that you need to export the surplus, and that will basically continue for a long time. So they are mainly export cables because that is the system that we are having now. But they are obviously the power flips, and more hours. You see that the cables are also utilized for import to Norway, to NO2 southwestern Norway, and as electricity markets are changing, the green transition basically means that we probably will see power flowing more often in both directions on these cables, and then maybe in a way you can see that then the upside or the benefits of the cables are exposed to Norwegian electricity consumers.
So that's further down the line, you think, then, Sigbjørn?
That's further down the line. Basically, the Nordic, the Norwegian power production surplus doesn't disappear. So it needs to be exported, and that will mainly be on those sea cables out of NO2. At least as long as coal and natural gas prices are as high as they are, and giving high electricity prices in continental Europe and UK, then the export will mainly be on those sea cables.
For sure. I mean, Gunnar, you mentioned the plans for offshore wind in both, in the UK and also Northern Europe. Once you start getting up to, 20, 30 gigawatts of offshore wind in the UK, potentially equivalent in other parts of the North Sea, does that not make sense? Does it not make sense then to build more cables to Norway? I mean, is that politically impossible? I mean, surely that would drive prices down for Norwegian consumers. But now, obviously, that's very politically difficult.
Yes, sure. But you shouldn't forget that these offshore wind parks is replacing a lot of gas. So it doesn't mean that they will get a lot of oversupply, but it means that they will have a lot of more hours with oversupply, which they need to get rid of somewhere. And obviously in that situation, it would be beneficial for us to import very cheap renewable power from these countries. And that was the idea 10, 15 years ago when they planned these cables as well, that was supposed to be a support in a way for this shift, this green shift. And it works. We saw this already in spring with a lot of the solar production came also mid in our inflow season, start of our inflow season, so giving us very low prices due to the solar prices priced very low. And it was so we already seen quite a bit of it. I mean, last year we've never seen so many negative hours as we did. I mean, Finland was well on top of their negative hours due to they had moved from a undersupply to oversupply country, and with lots of wind and solar, and also with Olkiluoto finally after 15, 20 years coming online. So it's we already saw last year that this is what's coming, and we expect the solar build out has been just the same this last year, so we will see the same effect this spring when it comes on, and when the offshore plants also in the Nordic Sea will come on, in Atlantic Sea will come on, then definitely more and more cheap hours will be imported, and we will have more water that we can export, or will not be as vulnerable for these cold spells or shocks in fuel prices, or which we never can actually control, because that's a much larger world market that we follow the prices for. So it's cables will be very beneficial for us the coming years.
Absolutely, and that's something that seems to be forgotten often, and that long-term view, I think, it's all very short-termist, but actually 10, 15 years ago, of course, it'll be very volatile, and some days you're not windy, not sunny, but on other days, it'll be in abundance, and that's also will hopefully stimulate lots of flexibility providers, hydrogen, etc. But Sigbjørn and Gunnar, if I can just finish off with what your expectations are for the first quarter for prices, in the next 3 months. So we talked about next week, but if we can go a little bit further for the year. I mean, you've talked about production surplus, Sigbjørn. What does that mean towards from now until the end of March?
Markets now expecting a return to like mild weather in continental Europe from mid next week, and gas prices on a declining trend, the CO2 quotas, and basically coal prices as well, leading to power prices in all of Europe on a declining trend. And that pushes the price expectations for Nordic power downwards as well. We see now this January, everything points to this being one of the coldest January in decades, the last 3 decades. So we have really sort of exposed winter cold snaps, and we still see most areas and the system price. It's even in this situation doesn't clear much above rest of Europe. So that's sort of basically the upside for prices rest of winter. Put it a bit simply. So then it depends, on the weather here in the Nordic region. If it continues like we have, with a fairly cold, dry situation lasting now for 3.5 months, if that should continue for the rest of the winter, we would follow continental Europe fairly closely, I would say. But if we should see a change to more like normal westerly flows, with higher temperatures, a lot of wind power in the system, with above 35 gigawatt now installed in the Nordic region. We could. It's not on the cards right now in the weather forecasts, but if we see that change towards westerly flows, we will see a dramatic price fall immediately because basically production surplus in the Nordic region is record high and growing by the day. Just adding more basically wind power to the system, not every day, but you still add a lot of production capacity, which adds a lot of bearish price pressure when you have the weather scenarios, the warm, wet, windy weather scenarios. Then you would see big price decrease immediately.
Potentially hovering around 100 if the weather stays cold, potentially coming down a lot further.
Yes, and let's say if this weather situation prevails throughout, say 90ish, and if we see this change of weather type down to 40 immediately.
Interesting, Sigbjørn. And Odd Gunnar, what's your view? What's your take? What's the direction prices could move in over the coming 3 months?
Yeah, I think what we see now, obviously, when the cold spell is now, and I agree with Sigbjørn here that we also have a bearish view on the fuels, as long as it seems to turn milder again on the continent. So the hundreds now going a bit further through the winter, and then coming into the spring, the spring in March, then that's a bit difficult, but we often see then quite high solar capacity on the continent. So I think that could be something we could start seeing already then, that we could get very low prices on good solar days from the continent and pushing down the prices here. And obviously, if we see a shift here in the weather, then obviously we half the prices quite rapidly going, because this memory is short also in the hydro community, so they remember last year, obviously, when they were saving a bit much water maybe during winter, and then suddenly they got a lot of imports due to wind and solar, and then the storm Hans came in and just filled up everything in Oslo region and also west of us. So it's I think they will be very eager to produce now, and then they're eager to produce, then the chances of prices going down is definitely higher than it's going up.
Absolutely. But as ever, it all depends on the weather, gentlemen. But Sigbjørn and Odd Gunnar, thank you very much for being guests on the Montel Weekly Podcast this week.
Thank you.
Thank you.